Hi again, and welcome to another edition of The Grid. We're in the playoffs now. This is the best time of year for high school football. We're going to talk a little bit about what will be a busy Thursday and Friday. Obviously, this is Wednesday night. We have a pretty much evenly divided set of games on Thursday and Friday. And joining me today is Marcus Gutierrez and Ray Castillo, and I'm Mike Foreman, and we'll jump right into the games, starting with Thursday's games. I guess that makes a logical thing. Right down the road in Cuero, we have Halesville playing Luling, and I believe, Marcus, you'll be at that game, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. I'll be there.
Yeah.
Things we're going to look at. I got to see Luling last year. Very good team. They went up against Edna. The majority of those players are back. They have a 4-5 record right now, so maybe their record doesn't speak highly of them, but they're a good team. They can run and throw the ball, so that's something Hallettsville's going to have to be prepared to do, and it's going to come down to that defense if they can stop anybody. We know that Hallettsville's always going to play hard, and that's one thing that you look at all the time. You're like, well, I don't know if Hallettsville can do it, and then you go to the game, you cover it, and they did it. So that's one thing that's going to be interesting for the Ramos. We know about the offense, and we know what DJ Taylor can do with the ball. Scooter Adams can do it all.
Yeah.
He can take snaps at the QB. Yeah. Can be a receiver in the slot. Along with Jordan Brooks, Jackson Taylor, they have all the weapons. But I think that game's going to come down to defense and can they stop Luling.
Right. Of course, Hallettsville's put up some incredible numbers on offense this year, and you're right, they do have a bunch of weapons on that team, as you mentioned. And another team from that district, and really what might be the most competitive game of the whole weekend, we have Edna and Lago Vista, which will be in Bastrop, and Kevin Ahlstrom will be at that game.
Right.
You know a little bit about Edna, Ray. I know Lago Vista is usually a very competitive team, so now we're going to see Edna's had like the whole season to get used to that slot T that Jerry Long installed. Do you think Edna's ready for the playoffs?
Definitely, and you look at the games that are scheduled, this one might just be the one that comes down to the wire just because both teams are so evenly matched. But yeah, you look at Edna, and offensively, I mean, Kenny Haynes, he's someone we can talk about, all day. There's the season he's having is incredible. That's really, pushing them offensively. And Coach Long has done a great job with them coming over from Corpus Christi Carroll, and he accomplished their goal, and that's making the playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes over there in Bastrop.
Right, and we'll see. This could be a big game, and one of the most important things I think for Edna is Kenny Haynes.
Right.
He's a very hard, tough runner. If anybody's seen him, they know that. And they really need to get Haynes going in that slot T so they can have success against Lago Vista. Another game coming up, the two teams who played last week, Shiner and Refugio, they're both playing on Thursday. I think you're going to see them try to play some games on Thursday because eventually whoever makes it to the state final will be playing on a Wednesday night. So it's to their benefit, obviously, the earlier in the week they can play. Refugio will be playing Ben Bolt, and Shiner will be playing Santa Maria. On paper at least, these are games that Refugio and Shiner should win. Of course, you don't play on paper, but you still got to show up and execute, right?
Yeah, I'd say so. We saw last week Shiner got shut out, but that is a very young team. But they were able to hold the defending state champs to around like 30 points. So you can take a positive away from that. And they've been growing all year. We didn't know coming into the year how they were going to do, but we found out that those young players have really stepped up. And now a lot of them are going to experience their first playoff game. And it's nothing but great things headed for Shiner with this young team.
Yeah, I don't know, Ray. You saw that game last week. I was talking to Coach Herring this week, and he was telling me that, even though Refugio was successful against Shiner, he said Shiner is very difficult to run the ball against.
Right, and, that's correct. And, one thing Herring noted was that he said defensively he believes that was the best game that Refugio's had all season long. You look at Jamel Lafon highlighting that defense, coming in with 5 interceptions. He had one against Shiner, but Yeah, it was tough. Defensively, Refugio got the job done, and they did run the ball pretty well. Isidro had a nice
Right.
run there for a score. But overall, it just shows you that Shiner does. They can play with anyone. Unfortunately, they came up with a loss against the Bobcats, but that team, like you said, it's going to be a challenge if they can make it to the next round against Mason. But
Right.
Shiner and Refugio definitely will see those two teams.
Yeah, and then right down the road from Refugio in Woodsboro, the Eagles obviously, I guess, won a coin flip, and they will be hosting Runge in a by-district game. The Eagles have really come a long way under first-year coach Coach Rangel. That they've done real well, and that was a crazy game last week against Rivera for the district title, and Woodsboro was able to win out. Runge is a team that has come on as of late. Coach Blaylock has got them believing in themselves, which I think is really important when you haven't had a lot of success, which Runge has. In fact, Runge's in the playoffs for the first time since 2013. But that'd be good, for two teams to play. It'd be great for Woodsboro because obviously you have a home field advantage, which is, it's tremendous in the playoffs. And I think that's something that the UIL has actually talked about next year. They've done for 6A, and now they're talking about for 5A, where the district champion or the upper seed will have the home field and by district, which at least rewards a team for winning the district championship. I mean, I think it's a good idea that the UIL is doing it. And also, as you find out, if you don't jump on the stadium right away, I mean, this first round, you're pretty much left out in the cold, and that's what happens. You have to flip home and home. And speaking of which, that's what happened with Cuero. The Gobblers playing West Oso. They got in a situation where the neutral sites, which between them and West Oso, there aren't very many, the sites they looked at were all taken, so they ended up flipping home and home, and the Gobblers won the flip, and they'll get to host their first round playoff game. Cuero's been just outstanding this season. They've had one test, really. That came from Sweeney, and they were able to persevere and win that game. And so now they'll start the playoffs, I think, on a good note.
Yeah, I'd say so. The thing about Cuero, you talk about starting fast. It literally takes only one play to score, and you can give that ball to 3 or 4 athletes, and that's what it comes down to. They score really fast. It's going to come down to the trenches for Cuero. We've known that all year, and that you talked about that Sweeney test. We were all our eyes open a little bit, but they were able to come back and get that win, much needed. Now I'm pretty sure everyone down in Cuero, they're expecting a long run. They have tremendous athletes, but it's going to come down to those trenches, I think. If they can hold, because they're going to, when they get further down in the playoffs, they're going to go against those big teams, and how do they control the line of scrimmage, in the playoffs.
And this is an interesting note. I was speaking to Ray Reese, who's been around Cuero football all his life. His son's played for the team. His dad's been there. And I asked him, I said, do you remember the last time that Cuero had a home playoff game? And he said he thinks it's in the 1930s. That's amazing. I mean, after all these years and all those playoff runs and state title runs, and that Cuero has not played a game at Gobbler Stadium in the playoffs, but I'm sure that it's going to be a huge crowd there Friday night. It should be a great atmosphere. And another team that is very familiar with Cuero is their DeWitt County rivals, the Yoakum Bulldogs. Yoakum, they won their first outright district championship since 2000 this year. They did what they were supposed to do. They bounced back from that loss to Cuero, and they've won every game since then. And now they start the playoffs against Universal City Randolph, which is maybe not one of the best Randolph teams, but anybody that's seen Randolph over the years knows Randolph usually has some skilled people that are pretty good. What should we look for from the Bulldogs?
The Bulldogs, since Bo Robinson's got there, he's changed that culture there. He's brought in that winning mentality along with, that player's coach. Coach Robinson was a player. He played in the NFL for a while. So he knows what those kids are like. So that's how he treats the players. We talk about Holden Lauer and Hayden Garvin. They split time throughout the season, and it doesn't matter who's in there. They get the ball to the athletes, Joshua Moore, Jordan Moore. They've been running the ball with the Arcadie. And so there's a lot of athletes there, just like in Cuero, and they've been taking care of business. 13-12 win over Hallettsville.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Edna. They took care of their district. They
Right.
went undefeated in district to win their district title. So it says a lot about them. Last year they came up short in the state final game. This year it's all about business, talk about taking care of business. So I'm pretty sure they're going to make a statement on Friday night, to show the state that, hey, we're still here.
Right, and of course, another game Friday night. We'll get to the game here in town in a minute, but I did want to talk about Goliad. Goliad goes down to Corpus Christi at Buccaneer Stadium, and they will play Santa Rosa. Goliad's another team with big aspirations, obviously. They're a very talented team. They've seemed to improve as the season has gone along, which is what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I know early on, even after Goliad lost to Refugio, and Coach Nicholson talked about that loss. After that game, he was very encouraged from what he saw from his team. And obviously what he saw was what eventually panned out, that they had a chance to be a very good football team. And I guess, Ray, you would think that Goliad has an excellent opportunity here to put together maybe a little run.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Tigers, and so they're just going through the season, and they end up 8-1.
Yeah.
And they, like you said, that one loss to Refugio. But yeah, they've been here before. Rocky Morris, he has a lot of playoff experience at the quarterback position. You look at the run they made last year, and they're going back to Buccaneer Stadium where they did play last year. So yeah, I think a Goliad, if they play their game, and Coach Nicholson, I know he'll have them ready. This should be something that they could look forward to.
Yeah, and as we should point out, this is going to be a very busy weekend for Goliad fans. I mean, Thursday they have the volleyball semifinals where the Tigerettes are trying to repeat as state champions.
Mm-hmm.
Friday there'll be people, I guarantee you, leaving Garland where the volleyball state tournament is and going to Corpus Christi to watch the Tigers play football. And if the Goliad volleyball team wins on Thursday, they'll be going from Corpus Christi back to Garland to see if the Goliad can make it back-to-back state championships. So, and of course, what happens there will also determine where these guys are going.
Yes.
I mean, on what we're looking at on Friday now is if Goliad wins Thursday, then Marcus will be in Seguin on Friday night for Yoakum, and then he'll be leaving there and going straight to Garland.
Yep.
So he can cover the state championship game. That means Ray will be at the West game, which we'll talk about in a minute. And if, we don't really want to talk about if Goliad loses, but if that happens, then Marcus will be at West and Ray will be at the Yoakum game. But now let's talk about the Warriors. Back in the playoffs, they had to win the last game to get in, but they did that. And then now that it's kind of unusual, they had their bye week. And so they've basically had 2 weeks to kind of rest up, prepare to face a San Antonio Memorial team that went 0-10 last season.
I talked with Coach Boyce today. You talk about Memorial 0-10 and then winning all those games this year, winning the district title. That's huge.
Yeah.
Especially in that district. We always talk about San Antonio teams. We know who the good teams are, the Judsons, the Steels.
Yeah.
But we're always a little iffy. But you always notice when a team has that kind of turnaround, something great's happening. And Boyce said that they're a great team. They have an athletic quarterback. Their defense is very fast. Their offense can move the ball. He said that he's a little concerned, but he says that every week. But it's a team to watch. It's a good story for San Antonio Memorial, but they have to come here to Memorial Stadium. West was able to win that coin flip, which I'm sure the Warrior fans are happy to just go down the street to Memorial Stadium. But this West team, in the past they always had those players that had that playoff experience. This team, there's only one player that has that playoff experience. That's Chase Greavy,
right?
Linebacker for West. So all these kids don't have that experience. But talking with Keon Boyd, he says we might not have that experience, but we have the fire and the passion to win playoff games, and this is what they've been preparing all year for. So talking with Keon today, he seems pretty confident in that offense. when he stepped in at quarterback, the second game of district, that offense started moving. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. They have the home field advantage going against Memorial. I think they'd be favored in this game on paper, but like you said, we have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, Ray, I would guess you'd imagine saying playing at home is a big advantage for the Warriors.
Yeah, definitely. And their fans are going to fill up the stands there at Memorial Stadium. So like Marcus said, you look at Coach Boyce, he's done such a great job getting this team ready. The job he's done, coming in here and just a transformation from last year for them to bounce back, and then now that they have everything set, it's where they need to be now. It's just a matter of getting it done, and what a great opportunity at home against the San Antonio Memorial team that the Warriors are definitely going to be looking forward to.
Right, a lot of big games this week. For the first week, there's always a lot of games, and we'll be on top of them. We'll have the scores, of course, and we'll have the Cover It Live going. And you can follow us on Twitter, and we'll have the games there. And we'll try to get you all the info. And next week is Thanksgiving week. The old expression that Coach Mark Reeve, he always used to tell me, he used to say, you labor on Labor Day so you can give thanks on Thanksgiving.
That's true.
So a lot of teams will be giving thanks on Thanksgiving. And so I think next week we can expect to see games Friday afternoon and then Friday night as well. And next week, you don't like to look ahead, but there's one matchup that we kind of have our eyes on. If Goliad and Hallettsville both win, they will play each other. And that you talk about for a second round game, that'll be a great game. And also if Shiner wins, it's likely to face Mason next week. So there will be some very competitive games next week. Of course, you have to win this week to get there, and that's obviously the object of what you want to do. But we'll be there to keep you filled in on everything, and keep an eye out on the website. Follow us on Twitter, and then we'll be back next week with another edition of The Grid.